Hi, welcome back to Natasha's Reads Right Now, and right now I'm doing a double book review on the books by Melissa Bashardoust. Girls Made of Snow and Glass and her newest release, Serpent Thorn. A quick personal disclaimer before my review. These books are YA fairy tale retellings, and they are not geared towards my age group. So keep that in mind as I review the parts of the book that didn't work for me, because a lot of these could be explained away with saying, well, you're not the target audience, and that's absolutely true. So take all of my critiques with a grain of salt. Both of these books are fairy tale inspired, with Girls Made of Snow and Glass being a retelling of Snow White and the Huntsman. And in this darker retelling, it gave me the vibe of Snow White meets Dr. Frankenstein. And we get the perspective of Lynette and Mina in this book. Lynette being the princess and Mina being her stepmother. And this retelling mainly focuses on that relationship, which was the best part about this book, but leads me into my negative, so we can end on a positive, which was the world building. The world building was sorely lacking in this book. The kingdom doesn't even have a name, and it's just separated into north and south. The south being the rich, fertile land that grows the crops and provides food to the rest of the kingdom, while the north is a cursed land that has endless winter and snow. And the northerners distrust the southerners distrust the northerners, and we don't really get a sense of why, other than they live in different parts of this kingdom. So it's not the story doesn't have a very global feel to it. It mainly just focuses on the main character's relationship. What this book lacks in world building for me makes up tremendously with the well-roundedness of the characters and their relationships with one another, the good and the bad. Some of the bad relationships stemming from Lynette and Mina and their upbringing with their fathers. So Lynette's father, the king, is very shaped by his grief over his late wife. So much so that he asks Mina's father, the magician, to create him a child that comes from his late wife. So he does so with snow and some magic. And so Lynette, she is going to look exactly like her mother, and that is what she struggles with growing up, is being seen for herself and not just a reflection of her mother. And growing up, the king, he really cannot see Lynette for who she is. And he is constantly reminding her, even as a toddler throwing tantrums, you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to make your father sad, would you? So he is putting all of the burden of his happiness onto his daughter, which is an enormous responsibility for one who is struggling to find out who she is on her own. In this retelling, we also get the backstory of how Mina became Lynette's stepmother. Now, when Mina was a child, her father, the magician, replaced her heart with one of glass. And he tells her this is the reason she can never love or be loved. So obviously that relationship between the two of them is very destructive and hurtful. And throughout the book, her father also puts the burden of his success on Mina's shoulders, saying, no one will love you except for your beauty. So use that to progress yourself and therefore progress me. And he has a definite mad scientist kind of vibe to him, where he just wants to immerse himself in his work and just see how far he can take his power. With their backgrounds being different but yet so similar, I felt that Lynette and Mina's relationship was built on something genuine and real. They both had the same insecurities about love and could work it out between themselves with each other. There was a character in this book that didn't feel as genuine to me as that did, and that is Nadia. Now, although I like her character, she didn't feel as genuine to me. Now, she comes to the castle to be the castle surgeon. And she is only, I mean, she is barely the age of Lynette herself, so she is very much on the young teenage side. It's proposed to the reader that she just is this amazing surgeon. And the only background we do get on her, supports that because she comes from a family of medical practitioners. But there really isn't a growth in that background that makes me feel solid. Yes, she is young, but yes, she is an amazing surgeon. It still feels like her character should be growing and learning, but she's kind of just put into the story at the beginning, already solid in her career as a surgeon. So that was a little off-putting for me. Maybe if Nadia's character wasn't in that position at the castle, she had some other position, it would have felt more real to me. Now on to my exact opposite likes and dislikes from the book Girls, Serpent Thorn, where the world building was expansive. It was very intricate and beautifully written. I felt immersed in the politics, the myth and folklore, and the general aesthetic of this kingdom setting. And in the story, we get the perspective of Soraya. And she is a girl who has been cursed to be poisonous to the touch. Anyone she touches will die. She literally has green veins with poison running through her blood. And her family, not wanting to seem cursed themselves as a royalty, to keep control over their kingdom, they lock her away, basically in a tower, isolating her so that their kingdom can feel secure in their family ruling. Now, her internal struggle, Soraya's, with feeling like she herself could become a monster. And so she tries to act extremely good to negate this. So her internal struggle with thinking that the curse will make me a monster is one that is very well handled throughout the entire book. And it was something she struggled with up until the very end. With that being said, there were characters that definitely felt like I could pick them up and remove them from the story and it wouldn't take much away. The first one being Lele, which is Soraya's childhood friend. And because we don't get a lot of background on Lele, as they grow up and drift apart, I didn't really feel the impact of that because there were a couple scenes, where they were playing as kids or had experiences together, but not enough for me to feel the connection between Soraya and Lele. And so when they split up, it didn't really feel any different than how we started the story. Along with her brother just felt like his place in the story was very forced. He was literally there only to tell and remind Soraya out loud how much of a danger she is and, how much, she should despise herself. I hated him, but I didn't really feel a long-lasting impact from him. If his role were given to one of Soraya's family members telling her these things, I felt it would have had a longer impact on her story as a whole. But I could have done without, her childhood friend's brother in this book. The other character that was definitely lacking for me in this book was the villain. Now, this villain, instead of feeling an overwhelming sense of power and evil from him, I felt just creepy stalker vibe. And so, I don't know, I just didn't really get on board with him being the absolute evil villain. Just that he was a little obsessive and creepy. Both of these books together had romantic relationships, and they both felt very similar, where these princesses were both brought up in isolation or were very sheltered in one degree or another. And then as soon as they get a little bit of freedom, they find that exact right person who they fall for, which felt very convenient for me. And I know that's a common theme with many fairy tales, but with it being a fairy tale retelling and, you know, a new take on the story, I had wished that that wasn't a trope that was included in this book. It would have, I think the romantic relationships would have had more of an impact on me had this trope been changed a little bit. Okay, that being said, I did enjoy the romantic relationship in Girls Made of Snow and Glass more than Girl Serpent Thorn, because it was more of a slow burn, less dramatic progression of their relationship. And it definitely felt real to me in that way. And with Girl Serpent Thorn, I feel like a lot of what I'm critiquing about this book could have been fixed if it were a duology instead of a standalone. Just because of how expansive and how much world building was crammed into these pages, there wasn't room for the character development for me to develop feelings for each of these characters. So, you know, how can I bash a book when all I want is to have more of the story? So it was a very odd place for me to be, with not feeling complete with the story but still wanting more of it. Both of these books individually didn't quite do it for me. But I feel that Melissa Bashardoust, if she comes out with another book, and if she is able to take the amazing characters from Girls Made of Snow and Glass and combine it with the beautiful world building she had in Girl Serpent Thorn, that would be my all-time favorite book if she comes out with it. And I hope she really does, because the stories and the premise for both of these books was so intriguing that I had to pick it up right away, especially with Girl Serpent Thorn. That is a new release. I started reading it the day it came out. So thank you for sticking around, hearing me rant and rave at the same time about each of these books. Let me know down in the comments what's your favorite modern fairy tale retelling that you've come across lately. And if you like big fairy tales and you cannot lie, go ahead and like and subscribe.